Whew, it's bright out here. This is a winter wonderland. What's going on? Day 3 of the storm, and it is not letting up. We still have some snow falling right now. It's the middle of the day. On the 3rd day of the storm, we had snow, and then we had rain, and then we have now snow again. We had about 8 inches officially with the last batch. We're supposed to get 1 to 3 with this batch. And look at the PSGF. It's holding on. Got some icicles on there now. Let's go inside though, where it's cozy 55 degrees, or give or take. Let's check that out. Oh, nothing like coming into a little bit of warmth. What do we got here? 58 degrees. So the reason why it was 58 degrees in here is because I had a heater going because last night it got a little chillier and I didn't turn it off this morning when I had some other errands to run. And so it's just a cozy 58 degrees in here. It didn't take very much of that little heater to keep things nice and cozy. So I was gonna go deliver some trees to Henry of Henry 2 Bonsai. And you know what, the snow, we decided maybe we'll do that tomorrow. On my spring break, remember, what a glorious spring break. I'll remember this one forever. So on today's show, well, I'll figure out something to do. I'm in the comfort of the PSGF. The snowstorm that wouldn't quit is still not quitting. And I am going to work on a little bird's nest spruce. So I just recently worked on a little gem spruce, which is even smaller than this as far as the foliage. And this one right here is a bird's nest spruce. And we're gonna go ahead and put this into its pot today. So we're gonna get rid of some of the soil, look at the root structure, and we're gonna clip some of this really flat top looking tree. It's got a fairly nice thick looking nebari in there with a big old bar branch down there, so we might be cutting one of those two out. We'll check that in a moment. So let's remove the tools and let's keep the chopstick and let's spin this thing around a couple of times and see what we can make of this tree. As with any nursery stock tree, I'm gonna start at the top and I'm gonna comb out some of this soil. And we're going to try to find that true nebari, that area where the roots start to branch off from the trunk line. We might have an extra inch of the trunk when we're all said and done. We might have no extra space. It could go down even multiple inches. Keep in mind when you're getting nursery stock that's in a bigger pot, I've said this before too, and I've learned the hard way. You can't just cut this thing off in half and hope that all the roots are still going to be where you hoped they would be. You really do have to take the time to go through some of this topsoil and the soil on this tree all the way around to see what the roots are actually doing. And then once you see where everything is, then you can make your decisions on what to cut off. Because right here, I'm coming on a bump already. Right here, there's a bump. This is a root right here, pretty thick. But back over here, I've gone down an inch already, and it's really loose soil. So I have a whole extra thick root, a thick trunk rather down here, but I have bigger roots up here. So we're gonna have to sift through all this stuff and see what we come up with. After we spend some time sorting through roots on a nursery pot with all kinds of roots going every which way, we have a lot of good roots in that top third. We're okay to start trimming off some at the bottom. We just really want to make sure that we have enough roots to support this tree in the top really third of this structure. And so we keep playing with the roots. We keep going a little bit deeper, getting a little bit more of that dirt off at the bottom. And we're cutting off some of those roots we know for sure are just not going to be needed because we have plenty of roots up above. This particular tree, as I've worked through it, is showcasing a lot of roots. we have plenty of roots to go on. So we're able to come in and make all kinds of cuts. I'm only about halfway through getting through the roots of this big tree in the soil. I have this nice mica pot, oval, and I've discovered that this is a really thick trunk, so this thick big pot is going to be better than what I was thinking about earlier, a little bit smaller and maybe rectangle, but I like this mica pot for its thickness, its sturdiness, and it's definitely deep enough for this really thick nebari. If you can see in there now, a little bit better than when I started. That is a pretty thick nebari. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to see if we can make that shine in the pot. So I know it's going to fit in the pot, but not quite yet. And this goes back to a discussion that we had a couple of videos ago. I asked everybody to put in their 2 cents worth on whether we bare root pine trees or not. And we got some great responses. And I'm not going to bare root this guy. I'm going to take the casual approach that a lot of people recommend, and I've been taught by some of my mentors, Peter T, with the Austrian pine that we worked on. And in the pine world here, we're not going to bare root this entire root ball here. Now I do know that the plane of the roots is as low as down here on this side of the tree. It could even go all the way the rest of the way down. I don't even know for sure. So that's the one challenge in not bare rooting this entire tree right now, is I don't know how low this is going to go. I think I'm just starting to get, there we go. That's in there pretty good. But my chopstick right here, as it hits this bottom part of the tree, there's a light colored root in there, and that's a solid root. So I don't know how well we're picking that up on camera, but right in there, there is a solid root right there. And then there's solid roots up here. So the root plane is somewhere about here. So we did gain at least an inch here, but I don't have to go down anymore on this side until maybe the next time we repot. And there's also this side that's higher up. The plane is higher. The question is, in future iterations of this repotted tree, is will I be able to cut more roots that are up high here versus that other side of the tree, which is really low? Could we gain another inch on this backside? That also might determine how we plant this thing in the pot here going forward, just even today. How is this going to fit into the pot with all of these roots up high over here and low down on the other side? But we still have a lot of roots like this wrapping around the tree, right here, wrapping around the tree. These are some big roots right here that are wrapping around a pretty good way. So there's a lot of tangled up, gnarly roots. So even though I'm not going to bare root this tree, I still want to pluck away at some of these top roots here to try to untangle some of this so we don't promote more tangling of roots, but we can work on trying to get that 360-degree root plane in the future, which will hopefully have a nice balanced growth for the whole life of the tree. And we're not going to have that if we have a big chunk of roots over here that's super gnarly and tangled that we just leave alone. So I will cut away at some of these roots here in a moment and just try to get a little bit better sense of what's going on up on top, so we can kind of spread out some of these roots and cut off some of those winding ones that might cut off some of the life of the tree in the future. But again, the more I unwind here, the more I'm getting rid of some soil. We're getting closer and closer to bare rooting this structure. But we're nowhere near bare rooting yet. There's still a lot of soil in here. And so we're just trying to see what's in these roots and see what we can still cut away safely. I might cut away about 1/3 of the dirt today. I might bare root about 1/3 of it today. We'll do about 1/3 of it in 2 years and the other 1/3 of it in about 4 years. And so that's a good long time and dedication and patience. But the biggest thing I'm concerned about now is making sure that we can cut off some roots so we get rid of some of this tendency to tangle up. So we'll keep plugging away. I'm at a point here where I want to make a couple of decisions early on. Inside this tree, we have a bar branch right off the get-go. We have a really thick nebari. It's kind of puffy and marshmallowy almost. It's not this real solid nebari that goes left and right, but it's kind of bumpy and kind of a fun-looking tree. But we got a big bar branch up here, and this branch is a far better branch than this one, I think, as far as how it flows off. But the only problem is there's another big one right on top of it. But we could relieve that one up here for these ones over back here. But I think I'm going to take this one of the bar branches off. But before I do that, I'm going to do what I just did and turn the tree around and look at it this way. I still like that big, solid. Maybe that branch is too big. Maybe that first primary branch is just way too thick and we want this one over here. And it doesn't ramify till way out here, so we have no ramification for a good 4 or 5 inches. Here it ramifies into 2 branches right here. And if I can try to see the health of the tree right here, I got some buds at the tips there. I don't know how readily this species backbuds. Someone help me in the comments below. I know Nigel does a lot with the bird's nest spruce. But I don't know. Now I don't know which one I want to cut off. There's a pretty thick branch out here, and we'd have to cut this up at some point, but there's no other branches, no separating until way up there, which lends me to think that maybe this is a better branch. But with the tree naturally curving this way right now, this is a far better looking branch to me, especially from this side. And if it's straight up and down, they both seem fine. This one just kind of flows out of the tree a lot nicer, but this has the split in it. What to do, what to do. Again, the underneath side of this tree, there's another thick branch right above this branch that's either the future leader of this tree, excuse me, or that comes off, because that should be the leader of the tree right there. I like that so much better. This branch does has a piece chopped off already right here. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at that nice split there, and it splits there, it splits up here. We've got some nice splitting, but that branch looks a little weak. And we've got this big honking branch right here that doesn't split till way out there, but here's a little back budding right here on old wood. But I don't know if that's going to do that over there on the actual branch itself. This root doesn't look like it's doing anything. Let's get rid of this one. That little root didn't really have anything on it. It's just kind of pointy. Right there, a little pointy. Not much there. So that wasn't a big loss. There's other roots growing from right there. I was able to cut away some roots down in here. And there's a big root right here I cut off. And then here's that other side where it's a really big root that goes straight out and then down. And I'm contemplating cutting that one off because there's one below it and there's a whole bunch more below that. So that's a really deep root plane. And we don't need that much. But I'm taking a bit of a risk here. But I'm going to go ahead and risk it and try to get that one gone. And there we go. So there was the root. And we're just going to take that guy off. And he's down in the tangled mess down here. There we go. So we got rid of a pretty big root there. But that frees us up here to go even lower with the root plane, which is what I like. I wanted to gain a little bit more trunk over here. And we have one more high root back here that's too tucked away for you to see. That's curled up and it came up and then went back down. And that one could be a while for us to sort out. So I just want to see what's next over here so we can maybe try to get rid of one more big root. And then, yeah, we'll get this into a position where we can clean it out even more. There we go. This is the second root right below the one I just cut off. Same kind of design going over and out. And we'll untangle that one. And look, yeah. So this one, there we go. And that was right here by this other one. So we have two eyes poking at us right there. And now we got rid of some of those roots. So now I'm going to leave some of the other stuff up here, but just cut a few of these roots that are sticking up. all around the top here and see if we can get the semblance of the top of this guy. So that might be all the soil we get rid of for right now. I'm going to come around here and cut off the extra roots that I don't think we're going to need. We'll put it in the pot, see how things are sitting in there. We'll see how severely we want to cut these roots back. So just as the tree sits in there, it sits pretty nice just normally like this. We got a nice little curve down with the trunk. I could accentuate the curve this way more, and that looks kind of nice. And then, you know, it almost makes you it allows this tree to almost keep the bar branches, because this goes up now and this one kind of goes more horizontal to the ground. But I still think one of those branches probably will go. So this back side here is the side I'm bare rooting. I'm getting rid of about 30% of the soil on this pine tree. Right over on this side. Spreading out the roots, getting that nice radial feel. It's right there with all those dangly roots. That has the least amount of soil left on there. That's the bare rooted part. And the rest of the soil I'm going to pretty much leave alone. We'll just make one more final look at some of these long winding roots. Like, see, this one wound in from down here, wound up towards the top. You end up finding out that you really don't need that root. Or maybe that one. Or some of those guys, right? So again, without bare rooting, we can't quite see where all these roots are going. So we have to kind of guess for now. And that's why people probably favor bare rooting, because then you know exactly what you're expecting, what you're seeing, and what's going to maybe happen for next time. Now, I wasn't going to tie this thing in, but I think I'm going to, because there's a fair amount of dirt in there. It's going to wobble around if I don't tie it in. I've got a lot of dirt left in there, so I'm not going to worry about scarring up any important roots at the moment. So we'll put some soil in here, and we'll give this at least a twist of wire to hold this guy in. We have our wire in our pot and our medium soil mix, and I have to determine how this is going to sit into the pot. I also have to determine if I want to cut one of those branches off or not. But I think I'm going to wait till it's in there. I just can't decide. I like this angle. This is also a possible front. The branches come more out at us this way. Just really stuffing this tree into that soil. Spread out those roots really nice, actually. We have a nice root spread right now. Now I can lift it up from the trunk, so it's pretty darn sturdy in there. Now I scrunched down this tree pretty tight into all those rocks. So there's not probably a lot of air pockets down there, but just in case, like right in there, we wiggle around and try to fill all that little pockets with some of the soil here. We're going to touch dirt down there because we left a lot of dirt. But remember, there was one side of this tree where we left pretty bare roots. So we got to make sure that we do this all the way around to find that spot. And that was the other side for sure. But there I got in there. There we go. I did use my medium soil. With most pines, we don't like our pine trees sitting in water too much. And so we want a really good drained soil, so I went with my medium instead of my fine mix. My medium mix will stay a lot drier and just really, really drain well. So from both sides, it looks pretty nice. It's got a very, very thick nebari, super thicker than I even thought it was. It was buried into dirt right here. right where these branches kind of come up from the soil, I gained a full inch, and I gained probably a ½ an inch in girth, if not more, just by revealing down lower where this tree was going to go. So now we have that big decision to make. What is Dave going to do? Is he going to keep this lower branch on here because this shoots up in the sky and this shoots down over here? It doesn't look so much like a bar branch anymore, does it? The way the tree is planted, they're opposite each other, and that still could create a bulge here, but it looks better now that it's at a slight angle from when I first looked at this tree. Looks like a fun, pudgy little tree. But now my consideration here with these two branches is I got a really thick branch here and an even thicker branch above it, and that doesn't make sense unless that's the leader. And I think the leader wants to be this branch over here. And so do I cut that great big thick thing off? And I think I probably will. Because I think that one up there, it's too much like this lower one. And it's not allowing for this apex of this tree to do its thing. So I am going to cut that one off. So let's do that one first. Let me get in here with my glasses off so I can really see what I'm doing here. Let's cut it right here first. Because I'm wondering, whoa, big cut everyone. Look at that, huh? Look at that little peacock of a feather. Little peacock looking like that, right? That is a huge branch we just cut off this tree. And there is the wound right there. Do I gin that? I'll keep that for old wood. Yeah. I'll see if we can make that look prettier as some kind of gin for now. And if we don't like it, we cut it off. Okay, there's some back button here on old wood. That's nice to see. All right. So I made the bold decision to cut the top branch first in keeping the bottom two branches. This still to me is a bar branch. My brain can't get away from that bar branch. So I'm trying to decide what I might want to do with that branch. But in the meantime, this was a cut from before. We got two branches coming off from the sides. Let's see if that survives. We've got this that can be brought back. Got branch down below that branch. So that's that is that branch that I said was so thick way out there. And it's really thick and gnarly out here. It could create a really nasty looking bulge. So we want to make sure we cut every possible extra we can get off of here for fear it's just going to be one snarly mess of branches. And we want, of course, some of these to survive. But if you look right in there, look at that mess, y'all. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 branches kind of growing out like that and like that. That's not very appealing. And so that's where this big branch, in favor of the smaller with taper, this big one comes off. Remember, we don't want bulge, and the pine trees do a really good job with healing themselves. And this is a nice sign right here. I'll leave it out here in case it's easier to see back here. But you see this dead branch right here? We've got a whole bunch of tangleness over here too. I'm seeing the pattern of this growth. It's almost like a really thick whorl here with multiple branches here. But what's really nice behind this branch right here, that little nub that I'm pointing to, there is new growth right behind it. Right here. With a bud right in there, and those are looking nice for the future possibly. So we cut all these little things off, or maybe this big one off, because we have too many branches growing in one spot. So we got some nice growth there going on. I'll leave these branches on because with pines we don't want to take too much green off to promote and help promote that growth. Otherwise we take too much green off, we're going to have some dieback. And we've got these back here. I see one bud on there. That one's a little iffy. So we're gonna have to see what survives this operation. A lot of mess up here, and just needles that are just plucked off and just laying in here like it's creating a little bed of needles. for a bug to come in and call it its home. All right, and then this branch can be coming off somewhere else. We got these two branches here that are, again, just too much clutter in here. So I'm left with these two. So this is kind of talk about a pad, everybody. We did some pads with Candace's juniper recently. There's a pad, it's all flat this way, but it's almost too flat. So we want to get maybe some depth in that. This is coming from way in the back, and it's coming from kind of in between some branches that might create a really weird bulge in the future. So we're just going to cut that guy right off. And there we go. There's that branch. If we can work off of that branch and get some back budding and get some smaller branching up here for some ramification, we have a really thick trunk with a really nice primary and then a couple secondaries, and we can have tertiary within a couple of years if we get some growth and we get all these buds to stay adventitious and do some growing for us. Now back here we have a branch that's completely in the shade, so we're going to cut that off in favor of this direction over here. As a matter of fact, we're going to cut this bottom one completely off. We don't like that anymore either. So we got a bit of an ugly whorl here. Remnants of a whorl. That's pretty ugly. We can see if we can deal with that here in this year. We'll see what survives of these branches up here. We're cutting a lot of stuff off, so we're stressing this tree out. We'll see what survives. And keep the look where we need it after it grows. Okay, so it's a little sparse, but I made that big decision to cut that off and then get this thinner because we just had 4 branches where we only need 2, and then it divides out there. We're in good shape. And this is the bulk of our tree anyway. This all could come off in the future. We could end up taking this completely off and have this a gin. We will see. And then we don't know if this is going to be the front or if that's going to be the front still. Based on how things are in there, it can go both ways. But this is really in our face here. So again, we're going to have to do some surgery here to get rid of some of this thickness. And right away here, here's a nice spot where I think we can get rid of this mass right there. And we can go even further down. There we go. So now we see that wound for now, but it will heal over. And this one's crossing over these branches back here. Let's get rid of that branch. This is in the back underneath, and it's crossing in a really funky way. Now we just thinned it out and aired it out a little bit more. A lot of back budding on here, a lot of nice new growth. So we're going to cut this one at least to here this year. There we go. This is pretty thick too. Oh, this is that other branch now that we don't know what we're going to do with. But it's not getting any light in here, everybody. This is really weak because there's no light because of all these branches. But if I cut all these branches off, then are we all of a sudden going to have enough tree left for it to survive, or do we need these taller branches to be the next part of this tree? A lot of tangled mess. You see all this crisscrossy stuff here? If this is our tree coming over this way, we got a branch back here that's just crisscrossing way too much. We take that off in favor of some of this stuff, and this is kind of coming at us. So let's get rid of that. And we got some smaller branches over here that can take over. I have another big thunky, thick, chunky one back here. I think we're just going to take that whole thing off. There we go. And again, a lot of these we can just make shorter. We can cut down to 2. Like right here, there's 4. There's 4 branches here and a lot of new buds back in here that opened up. We can at least take the thick one out. I'm going to take this one back here out. So we have little alternating there. This is a branch that's real close to 2 other branches. Right here. So it's all thick in here, it's close to 2 other branches. I take that off, and now we have some light that can get in here. We have some old cut points that are real thick trees. They grow really thick, holy cow. So we're just maintaining some thinning out. We're trying to thin out a tree to see what we want to keep and what we might not want to keep. And this would even be one of those tree candidates where we could probably wire this guy too. Now here we have these big branches here. We have 1, we have 2, and we have 3. Actually, this one back here is further back. I just want this whole big one gone. Again, in promoting of this guy right here, because there's a back bud from before. There's even a back bud behind it. And so one of those will grow big, so we don't need that right there. And then this guy can even be shorter. We don't need all of that. And so this shows some pretty wild and interesting movement, but we'll leave it for now because, again, we want to see what this tree is going to do after this massive operation. We have this branch right here that has 1, 2, 3. This one's kind of in our way, so why don't we just cut this one off so we can see the shape of our trunk right there a little bit better. And then we have this tree branch that's really nice way out to here. And we've got some that are growing down. We'll cut those off. And again, this is being blocked though still by all this up top here. So if we don't get light into here, this branch is going to go away, but you'll see it back-budded back there, so that's kind of nice to see. But it's not going to grow there if we don't get any sunlight in there. You got some really fine stuff growing back there. It's in the dark again. I think this one's just placed poorly. Too many branches in one area. Again, hard to see on camera. So now we're seeing a tree that's kind of leaning away from us, which is kind of a bummer. We'd have to repot this to be better, but this side looks a lot better. But now all the branches are interfaced over here. So we're thinning this out to see what we're going to do with future growth. I'm not going to wire this right now. I'm not going to do anything, but we're trying to make it survivable after this repot with getting rid of all the extra energy on some of the big branches that are just getting too clunky and in our way. So again, this could become a whole new branch someday for us. We can cut this whole thing back if we wanted to. I see a branch in here that was cut shorter, but not to the trunk. We have more back budding right here. This is a back bud right here on this thick branch that we could just cut off right there, and we got all that new growth going multiple different directions. Just how much we want to cut back right now. Yeah, and there's 4, 5, 6 branches coming from right here. So we are going to go in there. We're going to cut that right off. There we go. And now from this side, we cut this part right here off that was really big and thick. We got all these branches here. Again, this small guy can become a branch. This small guy, these guys can be branches wired into different spots. We're just trying to make a better looking tree, a little bit better looking tree, to see where it goes in the future. I don't know how well this branch down here is going to do. I keep saying that, but there's no light that's still getting through there. There's no light that comes down here. So that's why those are so weak and looking a little bit more spindly. If we cut that off, it does thin this tree out really quickly there. And it puts all the emphasis on this big branch right here. There it is without the branch. And this looks a little odd. I don't like how it curves the same way this curves. And maybe cut this and make it pointy like it's some, again, dead wood from a little while ago, like that branch broke off. And I don't know what this is going to do. It's a tough tree. And so I see the growth pattern on here. I mean, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 branches sometimes coming off from that tip. Now, if I cut that tip, will this all survive down here? We don't know. We're going to let this grow this year. And if these branches grow down here, here, and here, we'll cut that tip off. But until we know more about this tree and how it's going to react to all this work, I better wait. And again, I don't think these are going to last long, but worst case scenario, that could all become a gins down the road. Let's gin this guy while we're thinking about it and go from there. As I spin around and look at the tree, this is a great example in opposition to the tree I just worked on the other day, Candace's juniper, where just out of one workshop, she made a really stunning looking cascade tree from one workshop. But when you get a nursery stock tree, you just don't know what you're going to get. When you unearth the soil and work on the root structure, you just don't know what it's going to be like down below. So I got rid of about half of the foliage on this tree, cleaned it up so the sun can get in here, but I'm kind of just going to leave it here because I don't want to mess with it anymore and stress it out anymore. You know, we've got some tips here that this has got some buds on here, but I don't know if that's going to even survive. There's buds on a lot of the tips of these here, but we're going to go ahead and let this thing kind of sit around. I was able to get this gin a little started here today, so I got all the top layer off. It's kind of messy and choppy, like it was cracked off in some way. It's still got a little bit of that curvy shape, which is kind of it's a little less curvy than before. I might be able to monkey with it a little bit more. From this side, it's a little more hidden, but it's back there. You'd have to cut this branch off or bring this branch over here or something. But for right now, if this is the back of the tree, I'm going to leave this there. Yeah, we cut off some big, thick branches. There's a lot of oddities to this tree. It's a tree that's hard to see right now and what's going to happen with it. And so we'll just have to wait and see. These two grow a little bit out right at us in our face, so this one might come off someday. This one could stay and we could twist around. If this all comes off, this stays on, this becomes the second branch, right, left, then right over here, we get rid of this one. So right, left, right. If this stays on, we get rid of this guy over here and this one right here. We have a couple in a row, so it looks kind of odd, but we've got this big thick one over here. So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do with this guy. I think this is one of those times will tell. And I just don't like this branch here anymore. So I'm just going to take that off. There you go. Put the scissors down, Dave. Put them down. But now we can see this tree. It's leaning that way with some life over here with a great big branch. This could become a gin and we get rid of this completely because this is very, very boring right here before any branches. It'd been nice if we had some branches off this way early in, right? It's a nice thick primary branch. This is getting thicker. We got rid of the thicker one above this one for this gin. We'll just kind of leave this alone, give it some fertilizer this spring, and give it some TLC. And of course, as always, this is a long process and time will tell. But let's put a close to another spring break, winter storm tree in the PSGF. Hey everybody, take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and you know we're going to catch you very, very soon. Take care.